This tiger attacked its owner and dragged him off stage during a live performance. This pet bear mauled its owner to death while her children watched helplessly. And this snake breeder got strangled by a boa constrictor in his own living room. These are the shocking stories of pets that ate their owners on camera. Roy Horn's tiger mauling. Magic and danger collided in the most spectacular way possible when Roy Horn, part of the iconic Las Vegas illusionist duo Siegfried and Roy, faced his worst nightmare during a sold-out performance at the Mirage Resort and Casino. October 3rd, 2003 was supposed to be a celebration, Roy's 59th birthday, performing before 1,500 audience members who had no idea they were about to witness one of the most shocking animal attacks in entertainment history. Manticore, a 7-year-old, 380-400-pound white tiger, a rare variant of Bengal tiger, was hand-raised by the duo from a cub and had been part of their act for years without prior incidents. The show emphasized a bond between humans and animals, with Roy often portraying the tigers as family, though animal rights groups had criticized the act for exploiting wild animals. The attack occurred about 45 minutes into the 7:30 p.m. show. Roy introduced Manticore on stage, leading him by a short leash as part of a routine where the tiger was supposed to disappear in a magic trick. According to eyewitnesses, Manticore became distracted, possibly by a woman in the front row with a large beehive hairstyle or a flash from the audience, and refused to follow commands. Roy attempted to redirect him by tapping the tiger's face with a microphone and pulling the leash, but he tripped or stumbled. Some accounts suggest he suffered a mini-stroke at this moment, causing him to fall. Then, the nightmare began. Manticore lunged, grabbing Roy by the neck in his jaws, a behavior similar to how tigers carry cubs or subdue prey, and dragging him off stage backward across the floor. Stagehands rushed in, using fire extinguishers, water hoses, and meat distractions to try to get Manticore to release Roy. After several attempts, the tiger let go, but Roy had already lost significant blood from slash and puncture wounds to his neck and head. The audience initially thought it was part of the act until chaos ensued. Roy was rushed to University Medical Center in Las Vegas, where he underwent emergency surgery for a crushed windpipe, severed artery, and massive blood loss. He flatlined twice. He suffered a stroke, leading to partial paralysis on his left side and long-term mobility issues. He spent months in rehabilitation and never fully recovered, though he walked with assistance. Roy passed away on May 8, 2020, from COVID-19 complications. The entire incident was captured by the show's professional production cameras, which were filming for potential broadcast or archival purposes. However, the footage has never been publicly released out of respect for Roy. If you thought a trained tiger's stage attack was horrifying, this next pet owner's backyard bear turned feeding time into a deadly mauling. Kellyanne Walls' bear attack. Sometimes the most dangerous predators are the ones we invite into our homes, as Kellyanne Walls, a 37-year-old woman living in Ross Township, Pennsylvania, discovered when her family's pet turned into a killing machine. Her husband, Michael Walls, was an exotic pet dealer and owner of World of Reptiles Inc., established in 1988, and the couple kept multiple exotic animals on their property that would make most people's blood run cold. Animals they kept include a lion, cougar, jaguar, tiger, leopard, 2 servals, and the black bear named Teddy. Teddy was a 350-pound American black bear raised from a cub for about 9 years, considered a pet by the family. What made this situation even more dangerous was that Michael had held a state license for exotic animals since 1994, but it expired in June 2008, described as a technicality, meaning the family was essentially harboring illegal exotic animals. Kelly often helped care for the animals, and the family viewed them as tame, despite warnings from wildlife experts about the inherent dangers of captive wild animals. The delusion that these apex predators could somehow be domesticated would prove fatal. October 4, 2009 started as just another routine day of animal care that would end in unthinkable tragedy. The family had no idea that their years of playing Russian roulette with death were about to catch up with them. Around 5 p.m., Kelly entered Teddy's 15 by 15-foot steel and concrete cage to clean it and feed the bear. As per routine, she threw a shovelful of dog food to one side to distract Teddy while cleaning the other. This had been their system for years, a delicate dance with death that had somehow worked until this moment. Unexpectedly, the bear turned aggressive, lunging at her and mauling her with bites and claws. The attack was swift and brutal, focusing on her upper body. Kelly's 2 young children, ages around 10 and 12, and neighbor Scott Castone's children, witnessed the horror from outside the cage and screamed for help. Castone, hearing the cries, grabbed his gun and shot Teddy multiple times while the bear was still on top of Kelly, killing it to stop the attack. The children would be forever traumatized by watching their mother being torn apart by the animal they had once considered part of their family. Kelly was pronounced dead at the scene from massive trauma, including lacerations and blood loss. An autopsy confirmed death by mauling. The Pennsylvania Game Commission investigated, noting the expired license but ruling no criminal charges against Michael, as the lapse was administrative. Initial reports suggested property security footage captured the mauling, but no confirmation or public release of such video was found in verified sources. That bear's claws were deadly, but this next case involves a hippo whose massive jaws crushed its owner in their own dam. Marius Els's hippo nightmare. Love can be blind, especially when it comes to adopting one of Africa's deadliest animals as a family pet, as Marius Els, a 40-year-old South African farmer and former army major, discovered in the most brutal way possible. In 2005, he rescued a young hippopotamus calf, naming it Humphrey after it was swept down a flooded river. Els raised Humphrey as a pet for about 6 years on his 400-hectare farm in Veilharts Valley, Free State, South Africa, treating the massive beast like a beloved family member. He built a dam for Humphrey to swim in and often interacted with him, including swimming and riding on his back, which he documented in videos shared online. The sight of a grown man swimming with a hippo became an internet sensation, but what viewers didn't understand was the deadly game Els was playing. Els claimed Humphrey was tame, calling him his son, but local authorities and wildlife experts repeatedly warned him about the dangers of keeping a wild animal. Hippos are among Africa's most dangerous species, responsible for hundreds of human deaths annually, with jaws capable of snapping a human in half and territorial instincts that make them incredibly unpredictable. Despite these warnings, Els maintained Humphrey was safe and even allowed tourists to interact with him for a fee, turning his delusional relationship with a killer into a business venture that put countless lives at risk. The bond Els believed he had with Humphrey would prove to be a deadly illusion. Years of what seemed like peaceful coexistence had lulled him into a false sense of security, making him forget that beneath Humphrey's seemingly docile exterior lurked the instincts of one of nature's most efficient killers. On November 12, 2011, in the early evening, Els approached Humphrey near or in the dam on his farm, likely to feed or interact with him as part of their routine. According to reports, Humphrey suddenly became aggressive, charging Els and biting him multiple times with his powerful jaws, which can exert up to 2,000 pounds of force. The attack was rapid, with Humphrey dragging Els into the water, where he inflicted severe bite wounds to Els's torso and head. A farm worker witnessed the attack from a distance, but was unable to intervene due to the hippo's size, estimated at 1/200 kg, and aggression. By the time help arrived, Els was already dead, with his body partially submerged in the dam. Els was pronounced dead at the scene due to massive trauma from bite wounds and drowning. Humphrey was not immediately euthanized, as authorities debated what to do with the animal. Eventually, he was relocated to a wildlife sanctuary. A nearby farm's security camera partially captured the attack, though the footage was not publicly released due to its graphic nature. While that hippo's bite was crushing, this next family dog's reaction to a simple sweater triggered a multi-victim household rampage. Brenda Guerrero's New Year's nightmare. New Year's Day 2017 was supposed to be a celebration for Brenda Guerrero, a 50-year-old resident of Tampa, Florida, who lived with her husband and adult son in a suburban home. They owned a pitbull named Scarface, a male dog they had raised for about 2 years. The family had no reported history of issues with Scarface prior to the incident, and he was described as typically docile, making what happened next all the more shocking and unexpected. What started as an innocent attempt to dress up their beloved pet would transform their home into a war zone within seconds. The Guerrero family, like many pitbull owners, believed their dog was different from the statistics they'd heard about the breed. They saw Scarface as just another family dog, gentle and loving with those he knew. This false sense of security would nearly cost them their lives on what should have been a day of celebration and new beginnings. On January 1st, 2017, around noon, Brenda attempted to dress Scarface in a sweater, possibly for a New Year's outing or due to cool weather. What seemed like a simple, caring gesture, putting a sweater on her dog to keep him warm, would trigger a violent response that revealed the true nature lurking beneath Scarface's calm exterior. While inside their home, Scarface reacted aggressively to the sweater, snapping and biting Brenda on her arms and hands. The attack escalated rapidly as family members tried to help. Hearing her screams, her husband and son rushed to intervene. Scarface then turned on them, biting the husband on his legs and the son on his arms as they tried to pull the dog off Brenda. The house that had moments before been filled with New Year's joy was now echoing with screams of pain and terror as the family dog systematically attacked each family member who tried to help. A neighbor called 911 and Hillsborough County Sheriff's deputies arrived within minutes. The dog continued to attack, forcing deputies to use a taser to subdue Scarface, as shooting was deemed too risky in the confined space. Even with law enforcement present, Scarface refused to back down, his aggression so intense that it took electric shock to finally stop his rampage. Brenda sustained serious bite wounds requiring stitches but survived, as did her husband and son, who had less severe injuries. Scarface was seized by Hillsborough County Animal Services and quarantined for 10 days to check for rabies. The Guerreros chose not to reclaim the dog, and Scarface was euthanized due to his aggressive behavior. The incident was captured by the home's indoor security camera system, which the family had installed for general safety. The footage showed Brenda attempting to dress Scarface, the initial bite, and the subsequent attacks on her husband and son. A pitbull's sweater attack was brutal, but this next case shows how a conservation expert's lion turned predator right in front of tourists. Mike Hodge's conservation catastrophe. Passion for wildlife conservation can become a death sentence when dealing with apex predators, as Mike Hodge, a 67-year-old British expatriate, and his wife Chrissy discovered after moving from the UK to South Africa in 1999. They established a lion conservation project in 2003, which evolved into the Marakili Predator Center in Thabazimbi, Limpopo province, opening to the public in 2010. What started as a noble mission to protect endangered big cats would become a nightmare when the very animals they sought to save turned on them. The sanctuary housed various big cats, including lions, cheetahs, and tigers, and offered tourist experiences like lion mobile rides in caged vehicles. Shamba, a male lion, was bottle-fed and hand-raised by Hodge from a cub, living there for about 10 years. The relationship between Hodge and Shamba seemed to epitomize the deep bond possible between humans and wild animals, with Hodge often entering the enclosure to feed and interact with the massive predator. Despite the close bond they shared, wildlife experts often warn that captive lions retain wild instincts that can surface without warning. Years of peaceful interaction can create a false sense of security, making handlers forget that they're dealing with one of nature's most efficient killers. The sanctuary business model itself created additional pressure, as tourist interactions required increasingly close contact between humans and dangerous animals to satisfy visitors seeking authentic experiences. On April 28, 2018, around midday, Hodge entered Shamba's enclosure alone to investigate a strange smell that seemed to be agitating the lion, possibly from waste or an external source. This decision to enter alone, while routine for Hodge, would prove to be a fatal mistake. As Hodge walked calmly behind Shamba, the lion suddenly turned and charged. Hodge attempted to flee toward a metal gate exit, but Shamba pounced, grabbing him by the neck with his jaws. The lion then dragged Hodge backward across the scrubland toward bushes, mauling him with claws and bites. Onlookers, including tourists and staff, screamed in horror. One shouted for a rifle. The attack was witnessed by visitors who had come to admire the beautiful relationship between man and beast, only to see it transform into a scene of primal violence. A staff member fired shots, initially warning shots, then fatal ones, to stop the attack, killing Shamba. Hodge survived, but sustained severe neck and jaw injuries, including lacerations and possible fractures. He was airlifted to Mediclinic Hospital in Johannesburg for surgery and recovery, spending weeks in treatment. A visitor captured the full attack on their phone from outside the enclosure, showing Hodge's entry, the chase, mauling, and shots. The graphic footage went viral on platforms worldwide. That lion's territorial charge was vicious, but this next illegal breeder discovered his backyard cats were planning their own deadly surprise. Michael Praek's backyard breeding nightmare. Illegal animal breeding can turn deadly when amateur enthusiasts underestimate the power of apex predators, as Michael Praek, a 33-year-old resident of Zdechov, Czech Republic, discovered in the most brutal way possible. Praek was an amateur breeder who illegally kept big cats in homemade enclosures in his backyard, turning his residential property into a makeshift zoo that would become the site of his own execution. He purchased a male lion in 2016 from Slovakia and a lioness in 2018 for breeding purposes, without permits or veterinary approval. Neighbors complained about safety risks, and authorities fined him for lacking building permission and illegal breeding. Praek refused inspections, creating a stalemate due to no cruelty evidence. The Czech Republic allows private big cat ownership, but with proper regulation, something Praek consistently ignored, believing himself above the law. Praek's arrogance was matched only by his ignorance of the true nature of the animals he was keeping. He had constructed makeshift enclosures in his backyard that were barely adequate for containing such powerful predators, let alone safely managing them. His refusal to submit to inspections and his flagrant disregard for safety regulations showed a man who believed he could control forces far beyond his understanding. The situation had been escalating for years, with neighbors living in fear and authorities struggling to intervene. On February 5, 2019, early morning around 7 a.m., Praek entered the male lion's 9-year-old cage, possibly for feeding or cleaning. The door locked from inside, a safety feature. This seemingly smart safety feature would become Praek's death trap, ensuring that once the attack began, there would be no escape and no immediate help available. The lion attacked, mauling him with bites and claws, causing fatal injuries. No witnesses saw the attack, but Praek's father discovered the body via a security camera feed and alerted police. The horror of discovering his son's mutilated body through security camera footage would haunt Praek's father forever. The very technology meant to provide security had instead become a window into unspeakable violence. violence. Praek died from massive trauma. An autopsy confirmed mauling as cause. Police shot both lions, male and lioness, in separate cage to access the body safely. No charges filed, but the case prompted Czech government reviews of wildlife laws, including tighter restrictions on predatory animals. The attack likely resulted from the lion's wild instincts in a confined space, possibly triggered by breeding stress or routine disruption. Praek's father viewed the body via a home security camera, alerting authorities. While no public footage of the attack exists, reports imply the system captured the scene, body in cage, used in investigations. Czech lion attacks are rare, but this next case involves a family pit bull that turned on an elderly woman in the most savage way. Sushila Trapathy's pit bull betrayal. Retirement should be a time of peace and tranquility, but for Sushila Trapathy, an 82-year-old retired schoolteacher living in the Kaiserbagh area of Lucknow, Uttar Pradesh, India, July 12, 2022, would mark the end of her golden years in the most horrific way imaginable. She lived with her son, Deepak Trapathy, a gym trainer, and the family owned 2 dogs, a 3-year-old pit bull named Brownie, purchased as a puppy for Rs 15,000 3 years earlier, and a Labrador. Brownie was considered a family pet with no prior history of aggression, and the family viewed it as tame. Pit bulls are popular in India as status symbols, but experts warn of their potential for sudden aggression due to breeding history. Neighbors described the dogs as typically kept indoors, and the family had no previous complaints about Brownie. The elderly woman had spent 3 years caring for this animal, treating it as part of her family, and never imagining it could turn against her. The tragic irony was that Sushila had been a teacher, someone who had dedicated her life to nurturing and protecting the young. Now, in her twilight years, she had extended that same caring nature to an animal that would ultimately destroy her. Her son's decision to buy a pit bull as a status symbol reflected a growing trend in India, where exotic and aggressive dog breeds were becoming fashionable, despite the lack of understanding about their true nature and potential dangers. On the evening of July 12, 2022, Sushila was alone at home while Deepak was at the gym. She went to the roof of the house when Brownie suddenly attacked her without provocation. The dog mauled her, inflicting deep bite wounds from her neck to abdomen and legs, tearing flesh and causing massive blood loss. Neighbors heard barking and Sushila's cries for help, but could not enter as the door was locked from inside. The isolation of the attack made it even more terrifying. Sushila's screams echoed through the night, but the locked door meant that help couldn't reach her in time. Deepak returned around 6 a.m. the next morning, found her in a pool of blood, and rushed her to Balrampur Hospital. The sight that greeted him would haunt him forever. His beloved mother, who had sacrificed so much for him, lying destroyed by the very animal he had brought into their home. Sushila was transferred to King George's Medical University Trauma Center, but succumbed to her injuries due to excessive blood loss. A post-mortem confirmed death by mauling. Brownie was seized by Lucknow Municipal Corporation and placed in an animal birth control center for observation, where it reportedly showed good behavior. The dog was later reunited with Deepak after legal proceedings. Experts theorized the attack could have been triggered by Brownie's hunting instincts, possibly exacerbated by heat, hunger, or a medical issue in the dog. No security footage of the attack is mentioned or publicly available. The incident occurred indoors or on the roof, and details rely on eyewitness accounts from neighbors and the son's discovery. One pit bull killing an elderly teacher was tragic, but this next case involves a breeder's own pack turning him into their feeding frenzy main course. Dominic Cooper's breeding nightmare. Backyard breeding can be a lucrative side business until the very animals you're raising for profit turn against you in the most savage way possible. Dominic Cooper, a 35-year-old licensed security guard and father of 3, lived in Compton, California with his girlfriend. He bred pit bulls as a side hustle to make money, according to his longtime friend Glenda Ford, transforming his backyard into what would become his personal killing field. Cooper owned 13 pit bulls, 5 adults and 8 puppies aged 4 to 6 months, kept in kennels in his backyard on the 900 block of North Thorson Avenue. Neighbors reported no prior issues with the dogs, but breeding operations like this are common in the area and often criticized for contributing to overpopulation and aggression. The sheer number of dogs Cooper was managing created a volatile situation where pack dynamics could turn deadly without warning. Cooper's operation represented the dark side of the pit bull breeding industry, where profit motives often override safety, considerations, and proper animal management. The presence of intact breeding males, territorial competition, and resource guarding during feeding time created a perfect storm of aggression that Cooper either didn't understand or chose to ignore. His experience as a security guard may have given him false confidence in his ability to handle dangerous situations, but nothing could have prepared him for what his own dogs would do to him. On February 15, 2024, around 7 p.m., Cooper entered the backyard kennels to feed the dogs. Surveillance footage showed him cleaning the area and distributing food when a fight broke out among the pit bulls, possibly over the meal. The dogs turned on Cooper, with multiple adults mauling him for 5 5 to 6 minutes, inflicting severe bites to his upper and lower body. What started as routine feeding time became a feeding frenzy with Cooper as the main course. He managed to escape the initial attack and locked himself in an empty kennel for safety. Inside, he continued moving lethargically for another 12-13 minutes before succumbing. The irony was devastating. Cooper had locked himself in one of his own dog kennels, the very structures designed to contain his animals now serving as his makeshift tomb. His girlfriend discovered his body the next morning around 7 a.m. on February 16th and called authorities. Deputies arrived but faced aggressive dogs blocking access, requiring animal control to intervene. Cooper died from massive blood loss and physical exhaustion due to the mauling, as confirmed by the Los Angeles County Medical Examiner's autopsy in April 2024. All 13 dogs were seized by Los Angeles County Animal Care and Control, examined by a veterinarian, and euthanized on February 20th, 2024. Property surveillance video captured the feeding, the fight among dogs, the mauling, Cooper's escape to the kennel, and his final movements. The footage was reviewed by investigators and the medical examiner but has not been publicly released. Multiple pit bulls mauling their owner was savage, but this next case shows how an 18-foot snake slowly strangled its handler to death. Elliot Sensman's constrictor catastrophe. The reptile hobby can be rewarding until your beloved pet becomes your executioner, as Elliot Sensman, a 27-year-old resident of Upper Macungie Township, Lehigh County, Pennsylvania, discovered in the most suffocating way possible. Sensman was an experienced snake enthusiast who owned multiple exotic reptiles, including an 18-foot-long boa constrictor that would ultimately become his death sentence wrapped in scales. He had kept the snake for an estimated 10 years, raising it from a younger age, and was known in his community for his passion for reptiles. Sensman lived alone in a home on the 1400 block of Church Street, Fogelsville, and often handled his snakes, sharing his interest with friends and family. Boa constrictors, native to Central and South America, can grow to significant lengths and are powerful constrictors, capable of killing prey, or humans, by squeezing to disrupt breathing or circulation. The relationship between Sensman and his massive boa constrictor seemed to represent the pinnacle of human-reptile bonding. He had successfully cared for this animal for a decade, watching it grow from a manageable size to an 18-foot monster capable of crushing a human being. His expertise and experience with reptiles had given him confidence that proved to be fatally misplaced. The snake's docile behavior over the years had lulled him into forgetting that he was dealing with a predator whose instincts could be triggered by the slightest provocation. On July 20th, 2022, around 1:50 p.m., Upper Macungie Township Police received a 911 call from Sensman's father, who found his son unresponsive on the floor of his home with the 18-foot boa constrictor wrapped tightly around his neck. The incident occurred in the living room, where Sensman was likely handling or interacting with the snake, possibly during feeding or routine care. The snake had constricted around Sensman's neck and torso, cutting off his oxygen supply and causing asphyxiation. When officers arrived, they found the snake still coiled around Sensman, who was unconscious and in cardiac arrest. Due to the snake's size and refusal to release, police deemed it unsafe to intervene without lethal force. An officer shot the boa constrictor multiple times with a service weapon to free Sensman, killing the snake. The scene that greeted first responders was like something out of a nightmare. A young man slowly being squeezed to death by his own pet while still alive but unconscious. Sensman remained in critical condition but died 6 days later, on July 26, 2022, from anoxic brain injury due to asphyxiation, as confirmed by the Lehigh County Coroner's Office. The incident shocked the local community and drew national attention due to its rarity. Only about 12 fatal boa constrictor attacks on humans have been recorded in the US. Body camera footage from responding officers captured the aftermath. Sensman unconscious with the snake around his neck, police assessing the scene, and the moment they shot the snake. Experts suggested the boa constrictor may have mistaken Sensman's movements for prey, a common trigger during handling or feeding, or reacted defensively due to stress. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed watching this video, click on one of the boxes playing on your screen to watch more similar content.